Hello and welcome. I'm Patrick Curtis, Chief Monkey of Wall Street Oasis, and this is Monkey to Millions, a show where you get a front row seat as I mentor young students and professionals to try and help them break into their dream jobs. In the first cohort, you'll meet 4 students, all preparing for intense job interviews while trying to also balance a personal life and schoolwork. The goal of this show is to shine a light on the struggles of trying to break into competitive positions with a non traditional background and to give you a roadmap for your own success. My hope is that as you get to know these 4 impressive students, you are inspired to dream big. Remember, these are real people and this is their true story. Let's get to it. In this episode, we learned that Grace was hospitalized the prior week but has since recovered and is doing well again. She's staying up to date with her schoolwork and finished her first semester with a 3.9 GPA. Listen to how I shift the priorities for her to try and make sure she's setting herself up for success come this summer, and also some specific tactics on how frequently to follow up with contacts that she's established during networking. But first, hear from Grace over the previous few weeks leading up to this session.
So this is my first week back at school from winter break, first week of classes, and also my first week, first real official week, I guess, at my internship. So I just got back from the office now, and in addition, I've been sending a lot more LinkedIn invites as you suggested, and so I've been getting a very considerable amount of response, which has been good. And overall, my time's very full right now, especially with the internship. So every minute is scheduled and busy, but it's been good, very productive, and already getting a lot done. So nothing too new this week. I was actually hospitalized for a few days last week, so that put me a little bit behind. I didn't get as much accomplished last week as I had originally hoped, but this week is just going to be to kind of catch up, get back to where I want to be. I'm also involved on a team for a pitch competition run by the hedge fund Point72, and all of those materials are due the end of this week, so a big deadline, but overall just catching up this week and getting back on track.
All right, Grace, you're back at school and kind of swing of things. Hopefully you're feeling better.
Yes.
And yeah, it'd be great if you could just give me an update in terms of what's been going on.
So I guess it's about my third week of classes at this point. And I've been, I started my internship, I guess, like officially a few weeks ago. So I go in a day and a half each week for that. So it's not too much time, but it's still something, and kind of getting started with everything there.
Like 15 hours a week there or so?
Around that, yeah.
Have you, so it's only been a couple weeks there, right? You've only done like 30 hours?
Yeah.
Have you done any, have they given you, what type of stuff are they giving you? Like PIBs, like putting research together? What types of stuff are you doing? Database work?
Yeah, so at this point, like at the time I started, they were kind of already in the middle of a bunch of deals. So from what it's looking like, there's like one that's kind of starting up soon that I'll be more involved with. So, cool. And it's a much smaller company too, but they've had me doing just like some basic financial analysis on that, doing some work on that, and then just more general things too, like compiling research for comps, things like that.
Okay, good. Well, that'll help with your resume. How's everything else going with the balance with all the schoolwork and with now that on top of everything and then the networking on top of that? Is it too much or you feel like you're hanging in there okay?
It's definitely a lot, but I can manage it.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, the stuff with, I mean, you're already in really, like, it's funny because when I talk to everybody else, I always mention you. I'm like, oh, she's in great shape. She's a freshman. She already has an internship. You have the kind of the, what's it called? Those programs where you go in for like a week or a few days soon, right? Did you hear?
So I haven't heard from Goldman, so I'm pretty sure I didn't get it, but I'm surprised just because there was a Fordham alum I talked with who like pushed my resume to a bunch of people who run the women's program there. So
did you follow up?
I don't know. I'm actually talking. I have a phone call though on Monday with someone who I've previously talked with at Goldman. So I was going to ask her about that too.
Did you follow up with the person who was pushing your resume?
No, not him. So
I would follow up with him. Just ask him, hey,
okay.
I'm not sure. Or even check on WSO, see if like invites have been sent out already.
Yeah, I was looking and most people got theirs. There was a delay, but most people did get
Most people
theirs.
did get it. Okay, so I would
Mm-hmm.
ask him, just be like, hey, I know, no worries if I didn't get it. Just curious if they're rolling or if it's they're all out already. And just he may be like, what, you didn't get one? And he may like, push for you to get one, or he may just say like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, I couldn't get you in. But then it'll give you a little more clarity.
Mm-hmm. Right. And
Um,
then a bunch of other banks have opened theirs up too recently. Most of them are for sophomores, but some upperclassmen have told me to apply anyway because sometimes they'll look over that.
mhm.
So I'll do that.
Especially if you have the
Um,
banking experience on your resume already.
yeah, exactly. So I think like Evercore, Barclays, a few others have
Do you have
sophomore ones.
have you updated your resume for this internship you're doing now?
I started doing it, but I haven't really finalized it
Okay,
yet.
why don't you take a draft stab at that and then send it over to me and
Okay.
I'll take a look. But you kind of want to be a little bit more aggressive in terms of what you will be doing.
Yeah.
In terms of like financial analysis, you don't have to say you like were on a specific deal yet, but ideally within a couple weeks, if you can be on that deal, you can list that transaction
Mhm.
on there in terms of, is it a sell side M&A kind of
Mhm.
deal?
Yeah. I just don't know yet what my role is going to be because I'm only in a day and a half each week. I can't be as involved as during the summer where I would be there every day.
Got it. Yeah, makes sense.
Mhm.
Do you have a headset by any chance? So you're saying that like specifically you don't feel like you're going to be able to get as much influence because you're only there a couple days a week, so somebody else is going to have to be running it.
Mhm. Right. But I still don't know yet, so I guess I'll see.
So I guess in terms of like what you're doing on your resume, what's your thought? Like you don't want to list the transactions, or you feel comfortable enough to list the transactions if you're doing?
At this point, I wouldn't list any specific ones. I mean, because it's only been a couple weeks.
Right.
Um, but I guess in another month or two, I'll see where things are. And
Yeah, ideally you can do at least one, maybe two, even if you're not like building the model, if you can be like doing the comps, DCF analysis, valuation, even if you're doing it alongside the analyst or you build it alongside him or her, I think that would be really helpful because just having those buzzwords on your resume and making it look
Mhm,
financy, and that helps you clear a lot of screens.
mhm,
Um, Especially, I don't think you're gonna have them ready. It doesn't sound like you're gonna have it ready for the resume drop for this, um,
mhm.
these short ones. But
Yeah, most of what I've been doing at this point is more, I guess, like in Excel with like sales data and like customer and that kind of thing, revenue by client.
like trying to build up a revenue model, like
No, we're just like organizing the data, like pivot tables, that kind of thing.
okay, that's still good. That's useful. Okay, and then so what else is going on? So you have a pretty full course load. Remind me, you're going to be going to this is through the summer, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I'm just trying to think of how else you can prep. So did you have any other kind of interviews or chats or let's talk about your networking a little bit and
Mhm.
how is that going? Because I know I challenged you a little bit, right, last time?
Yes. So I've been having a lot of phone calls recently, not as many coffee chats just because I was away over break
Hmm.
and just now getting back. But it's been good. I mean, I've been talking to a lot of different people in different positions because I've been really interested in real estate. So that's kind of a niche thing.
Hmm.
But then also people like restructuring, I've been interested in too. So I've been trying to like target people in those areas, which can be difficult because they're more niche. But
Yeah, I mean restructuring. If you're looking at restructuring, a lot of the good shops are like Houlihan Lokey has a great restructuring practice. Lazard, Rothschild, where I worked, has a strong restructuring group. Um, Not a bad place to potentially position yourself because by the time you graduate, we probably will be in a recession or coming out of a recession.
yeah.
So not the worst place to position yourself. But yeah, I mean, in terms of restructuring, the difference is typically the engagements are longer. They tend to be you're dealing with obviously distressed companies, whether you're on the so do you understand like the difference between debtor and seller side?
Kind of.
So like so sorry, debtor and creditor. So like the debtor side
Oh, yeah.
for restructuring, you're you're advising the actual companies who took out the loans that can't pay it, and helping them negotiate basically against their creditors to try and get the best terms possible. And if you're an advisor for the creditors, you're basically trying to negotiate with the company to figure out what's the most you can still recover, even though you know you're not going to be whole in a distressed situation. So you lent out. There's a company I worked with called Corporacion Durango in Mexico, who's the largest paper and packaging plant when I was at Rothschild. And they, for example, had like issued, I think JP Morgan, a couple other big banks had issued like $800 million of unsecured debt to this company. And then pricing collapsed like 6 months later, and the company's profitability just completely tanked. And it was like the worst case scenario, right? Because they weren't even able to make like their first interest payment,
Right. Okay.
let alone that. And so like it was a longer process. So basically the entire kind of process of working with that company, we were on the debtor side. So we were helping them build like a complex kind of capital structure, or basically a financial model that had projections out based on what they thought the new reality was, basically the much worse reality with lower pricing, and what the profitability was, and basically what their debt capacity was. What could they actually pay back and over what time frame? And so a lot of that was building a model that had a lot of dynamic kind of flexibility in terms of the capital structure. So like all these, what debt would be forgiven, what debt would be structured where, how to negotiate with the secured creditors who had like actual claims on the machinery. So like you can't not pay them, you have to pay them, or they can basically take ownership of the company. Or shut you down. And then the unsecured is trying to figure out a way to kind of restructure something with them so that you can go into a bankruptcy process, like what's called a prepackaged bankruptcy process, where you have a prepackaged deal already negotiated with the creditor. So it's much easier to get in and get out of bankruptcy. So that was, I mean, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about very ugly scenarios, complex capital structures. The negotiation is really intense and can take months, if not years. So
Yeah.
it's
I kind of like that idea of kind of like really going in and getting your hands dirty.
yeah, and a lot of these companies are in rough shape. They're in industries that are kind of going through cyclical decline and whatnot. So, but yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting place to be. Oftentimes, the exit ops for restructuring can be like distressed credit funds or just distressed buy side, hedge funds, private equity funds, that type of thing. But yeah, that's my little spiel on restructuring.
And then on the real estate side, I've been able to talk with several Fordham alum at Blackstone too.
Nice.
So that's really good. And when I applied for the women's program next year, there's a few women I've talked with who are Fordham alum at Blackstone who can help me with that. And that's how they got in right from undergrad.
And that group at that Blackstone, what is that? That's like a real estate. What types of investment? Is it like buy side? What are they just like managing portfolios?
Well, the Fordham alum who I've talked with are more part of like real estate debt strategies groups. So not direct real estate private equity, but it's still related. They work.
Got it. What interests you about real estate?
I don't know. I mean, I guess this past summer, well,
Yeah.
since I was doing commercial real estate insurance, I was kind of like I got to meet some of the clients who work in commercial real estate,
Yeah.
and that just kind of piqued my interest.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's one of the more popular forums now, real estate finance on WSO. But there's like, I know very little about it, and I know it's filled with a lot of like different sub niches, and there's commercial, there's the individual investors and developers, like on the ground type of people actually doing the work, like with little small companies, where you can try to get a role there. There's the large asset managers who are, the REITs and stuff like that, where you're doing more like the large project scales and portfolio management. So there's a lot of different kind of subsectors within real estate. Real estate is just such a huge umbrella term. It's like saying I want to work in a hedge fund. It's like, okay, what does that mean? Because there's so many different types between long, short, macro. It's the same thing with real estate. There's so many different types of real estate. So I think it would be helpful if you kind of knew when you say, I want to go work in real estate, if you had like a good understanding of where in the real estate world kind of interests you most, because you can do, there's investment banks that work. Yeah. I mean, there's investment banks that work in real estate, right? In types of transactions, there's private equity funds that put private equity real estate, so, cool. So I see your connections are growing on LinkedIn. Where were you before? I can't remember. You're at like almost 500.
I don't remember where I was before, probably a little under 400.
Okay.
I've been sending out a lot of invites. It's just a matter of who accepts.
Do you think the acceptance rate is pretty low?
I don't know. I mean, I
Like,
feel like there's a lot of people who don't check. Like they'll accept. People are accepting now who I might have sent an invite to 3 months ago.
yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, you can do up to 100 a day. I know you're busy and you don't want to just like spam everybody, but if you could be doing like 20 a day, it doesn't hurt to just get that initial connection, because once you're connected on LinkedIn, you can actually see their email. I don't know.
Right. That's been helpful.
And that's huge, because once you have their email, then you can get them into the reminder cycle. I call it where you send an email and you have the reminder to follow up with them in 3 weeks or 6 weeks.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Yeah.
The right inbox.
And so then eventually it's going to start being like every morning you have like 10 emails, 15 emails. So, but it's good because the more you do that, the more chances you're getting yourself at making a great connection that's going to make, change your whole trajectory.
Yeah, I've already had a few people I've talked to at, I guess, more like middle market places who have said if I'm looking for an internship to let them know. So like for the fall, I'm definitely going to, follow up with some of those people.
For, you mean sophomore summer?
Or for this fall. So I'll probably stay at the internship where I am now through the end of the summer, and then I can intern in the fall semester too.
Yeah, so you're like going to be doing this through schooling the whole
Yeah,
time.
that's what a lot of people here do.
Yeah, because you're in the city. You can do it. It's really intense. That's really.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the student life here is just a lot different because, I mean, it's not a traditional college campus to begin with.
Right.
But then, I don't know. They say we're living more like adults than actual college students.
You are. I mean,
you're
you're living, I guess you're probably in a dorm or whatnot, but, or student housing, but that's probably the only thing that's very college.
Yeah.
And then specifically like your classes and the course load, is that something where you can keep at a manageable level? Is it finance? And what are you kind of focusing on? And what does Fordham?
Right now it's a mix. So I'm in some of kind of like the liberal arts core classes, and then I'm also in a business class this semester that's just kind of a general business class, nothing too specific at this point. We just kind of do a little bit of everything, and then economics. So, and then I'm doing coding in my statistics class, so that's helpful too.
Like what type of coding? Python?
R.
Yeah, I mean, we're about to actually release a course, or by the time this airs, we've released a course on Python fundamentals, because I think it's going to be more and more useful to people to be able to use that tool, especially in finance and sales and trading, where everything is getting automated.
Yes.
M&A will probably be one of the last things that ever gets automated, because it's really pure advisory and in relationships. So it's a good place to be. But okay, so it sounds like you're doing well. What do you think in terms of like, so you got like an extra 50-ish connections since we last spoke. I'd love to see that jump.
Yeah, I've been playing catch up this week since I was put behind last week.
Yeah.
But once this weekend's over, I'll have
your school and your internship are priority right now. It's just tough for you to find, because you have the internship during school. I just worry about your balance and like actually having time to breathe. Like, you shouldn't push yourself to the point where you're working 80, 90 hours a week, meaning with school and with everything. That shouldn't be your life right now. You have plenty of time to do that when you graduate.
No, I mean, my weekends are a lot more free.
Okay.
Just because I have schoolwork, but I can fit that in where I want to.
Right. So, I mean, what I would suggest is if you can have a balance where your schoolwork is, let's say you're in class, 10 hours a week, and you're studying 10 to 15 hours a week.
Yeah, probably a little bit more.
a little more, maybe
Yeah.
20. So 20, it's 25 hours. And then the problem is you get another 15 hours right there with the internship.
Uh-huh.
You're already at 40. So maybe just putting in another 5. If you do 5, like an hour a day of networking
Mhm.
during the week, I think you can still do a lot of damage. An hour of reaching out with connections
Right.
to relevant people in New York,
Mhm.
or like you said, remember the previous people who had backgrounds to Maryland.
Yeah. So that I've been,
Have you already done all those? Have you worked through those?
I think I've gone through most of those.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of doing it by high school and by some
And
like local colleges.
remind me, did you get Sales Navigator? Did you invest in that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so you have, you can save like actual lists, right? Is like different searches and lists
Oh, I didn't know that
and
to save
leads.
that.
Yeah, so you can
Okay.
save them so you can go back and then you'll know. It'll help you keep track.
Okay.
So like going forward, if you're like, hey, I want to only look at people at, I don't know, I'm trying to think of some random thing. Only people who are in New York, or like you say, okay, female investment bankers, in M&A. That's who I want to target now, or female investment bankers, or investment bankers in restructuring. And you do a search with like restructuring as a keyword to see. I mean,
Right.
it won't capture all of them, but it'll capture enough of them where you can
Mhm.
actually, um, in your message, have something along the lines of like, I'd love to learn more about restructuring. It's some, distressed, advisory is actually interesting to me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm trying to just learn more about it.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to do. At this point, it's been mostly Fordham connections or
Yeah.
trying to find some kind of connection in common.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Um,
mean, the Fordham network, it's pretty big, right?
mhm,
Do you feel like I just don't want you to like, I know Fordham, historically hasn't been like a super target school.
mhm,
So I don't want you to get stuck only connecting with people who are in positions that don't reach your potential.
mhm.
So
I
like,
mean, it's been growing a lot the past few years, so that's why I've really been targeting the younger people, and that's
yeah,
more of who I've found. Um, so, like I said, the people at like Blackstone, like there's been a growing number there in the past few years, and then Goldman too has had a large number coming past I think like 3 or 4 years.
yeah. And so you got to be careful looking specifically at what groups they're going into,
Mhm.
because that it's a huge difference. Like Blackstone and Goldman are two huge names, but look, where are the Fordham alums actually going? And then where are the other alums going at the other top schools? And if there's a big difference, I say for career wise, you shouldn't be just, I think career wise, you should be targeting the hardest groups to get into.
Right.
You already have an internship in investment banking. You're already building because you knew so early. It's funny. I had a podcast with a young guy who's like, it's such a lie when they say to you, you have time to figure it out. And he's like, you don't have time to figure it out. I'm like, you're right. I'm like, there's a freshman I'm working with and she like already has an internship. He's like, exactly. She's the one she's going to get all the interviews because she has like from freshman year on, been building that network, actually showing that on her resume. So it's a huge advantage.
Mhm.
So I don't think you should limit yourself to only specific groups. And I'm sure there's some Fordham alums who are super successful at top banks
Mhm.
and the top groups, but
Yeah.
it's not as big a pool.
Right. Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
it's a lot more in the younger end.
it's the younger people, and it's also and so like I want you to branch outside of that because I think you're gonna get a much more varied and interesting kind of perspective from talking to those people. So like
Mhm.
find other commonalities around.
That's what I've been trying to do.
Yeah.
It's tough, but like I've done volunteer
Photography.
work.
I mean, you could look at photography even and just try to do a keyword for.
Right. Yeah, I've been trying to find people. So I've done volunteer work with the Muscular Dystrophy Association, and
Mhm.
I'm getting involved here in New York. So I've been trying to find people with that, but it's difficult through LinkedIn because when you put in that keyword, then people who've done charity things just related to that, but not with the organization
Right.
come up. So
Yeah, it is tough. You gotta. That's the hard part is like getting the filters right and
right.
knowing what to go after next. But there's really no limit to potential connections. I wouldn't be shy. There's no advantage to being shy.
Yeah,
Um,
I've started kind of doing that. Even people who I don't necessarily have anything in common with, just sending invites.
Yeah, and if that's the point where you've gotten to, I mean, best if you can do something and kind of um, whether if even if it's not even if it's like saying, hey, I'm at a non-target as well. And you could do like,
Okay.
you could people in how, I'd love to learn your story and how you got there. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of people are oftentimes from those schools are oftentimes more willing to talk
Okay.
because they struggled and, not everyone responded to them when they were in your shoes.
Mhm. Right. Okay.
So oftentimes you can be like, you can do a search for a specific group. Like, let's say you want to talk to somebody in TMT at the top banks, like a telecom media group or a consumers group. You can do a search for that. And then you can like look at the schools they went to and like
Mhm.
any that are seem like a state school or um, a school that isn't traditionally like seen as a strong feeder.
Mhm.
Um, that's potentially a good connection.
Okay. I'll try
That makes sense.
that.
That makes sense.
Yes. Mhm.
Cool. Okay. Um, so I mean, I think right now it's about keeping your grades up, making sure school and the internship are a priority. You want to make sure that they have good things to say about you.
Yeah. Yeah, I got my first semester GPA, so a 3.93, I think. So,
Not too bad. Not too bad.
mhm.
I think you're okay. As long as you're above like a 3.5, 3.6, I think you're fine. Um, I wouldn't let it, if you can keep it above 3.7, it's great. 3.9 is perfect. That's great. It's actually almost better than a 4.0.
Mhm.
People laugh, but 4.0 isn't necessarily a good thing because oftentimes there's associations with a 4.0
Okay.
of like this person only focuses on
Mhm.
academics. It makes you look a little less where if you have a 3.9, it's like, okay, they're just really sharp and look, they're doing all these other things.
Okay. Yeah, I
um
don't think that I'll ever get it up to a 4, but
yeah, it's fun. And so like a 3.8, 3.9, I think it's that's perfect to target that. But yeah, obviously just keep trying to get A's and I think you'll be in good shape. Anything else I can help with personally? Like, do you want me to look through any of your um actual outreach emails or connection requests?
I don't think so. I mean, they've been pretty standard. I can go through, I guess, like my pending invites right now.
All right, cool. So yeah, if you can, if it's pretty standard, if you want to just read off of one or two of them to me, or
Mhm. Let's see. Um, so here's one. I've found a Fordham alum who was also in the same honors group that I'm in. It's a really small honors group.
uh-huh.
So I said, hi, Lucas. I'm a Fordham freshman studying global business and finance and also in GBHP. I saw you work in M&A within IB, a group I'm particularly interested in hearing more about at BAML. I'd love to be connected so we can maybe chat at some point that is mutually convenient. And then sign my name.
That's great. And I'd love to know how many of those you're sending out. So I guess I'll give you homework. Your homework is to send out. So you're at 443. Your homework is to send out. I'm doing the math in my head.
I have 220 pending sent invites right now.
200. You have 220 pending sent invites.
Mhm.
So I want that to be in the next month. I'm taking out my calculator right now. Let's say you have Monday through Friday, 5 to about 20 days, weekdays, and you're going to give an hour. How long is an hour a day? So it's like 20. That's 20 hours to work on this. How many do you think you can send out in an hour?
Um, 30? I don't,
30.
uh,
Okay. So like one every other minute. So it's like 600 more invites you could have pending.
mhm. I can try.
So you can try that. I think it's gonna just you're just gonna have such a broader base going into your sophomore year of people that actually responded that you actually had a 20-minute call with,
Mhm.
where from that say 600 people, maybe 100 will connect with you,
Mhm.
and maybe only 20 will do a call. So it shouldn't be overwhelming, even if you spend the whole month with
Mhm.
outreach. Do you know what
And
I
that's
mean?
the thing is like the people that who have connected, who have accepted my request, but they haven't responded anything. How long should I wait before I reach out to them about doing a call, or do I just let it sit for a while?
So you're saying once they're connected, they accept your request, but then they don't follow up on the message saying let's chat.
Yeah. So the people that don't
I would
respond.
get it into email,
Okay.
and I would say LinkedIn connection as the subject, and just say, hey, just want to say thanks for connecting. Again, very interested in M&A. Would love to follow up at some point, over the coming, over the next month or so. I'm typically free and just give times where you're typically open, that you don't have class, and then basically just see if they're willing to kind of put something on a calendar.
Okay. Right now I have a list of about 30 or 40 people who fit that, who have connected with me, but never responded, so I haven't had a call with them yet. So I wasn't sure how long I should wait before emailing them versus just sending out more LinkedIn invites right now.
I would email them right away, right after the connection when it's warm, and just get that started. And then I wouldn't follow. And then if you send that email and they don't respond, I wouldn't follow up like within a week. I would do it more like, I would wait 3 weeks, and then follow up again, and just say, hey, it'd be great to chat. Are you free sometime? And then maybe offer a different time, to do any of those times, or try to be really flexible in terms of what you offer. Because, obviously they're super, super busy. And, if they text you, leave your phone number in the email. If you want, you can send that to me, but you could just say something like, LinkedIn connection, on the subject. And then you could say, hey, Dan, thanks again for connecting. Thanks for connecting on LinkedIn. Just wanted to follow up and see if, sometime over the next few weeks might work for you for a quick 10-minute chat. I'm typically free anytime from, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and anytime after 5 p.m. on, Monday through Friday, whatever it is in terms of your schedule.
Okay.
Please let me know. Please let me know if any of those times work. And then you can just have your number in your signature, your email, your number, and everything there. So they may just text you.
Okay.
They'd be like, hey, do you have time now? And you got to be like, oh, who is this?
Yeah.
And so that's why it's good to have, I don't know how you're tracking it. You have a sheet of some sort?
Yeah, I just have a list right now of the about 30 or so people, just the names of people who I haven't actually contacted yet.
Okay. So yeah, I think it makes sense to get them into some sort of reminder cycle, because out of those 30, you can probably get 5 calls, I'm guessing, at least.
Yeah, and I've also found with other people who I've already emailed that a lot of times the email on their LinkedIn is one they don't use. So they just never open the email, and then the follow-up's never opened either.
And that happens.
It's like an old personal one.
And if that happens, you can always go back to LinkedIn and try and message on there, because if they accepted, that means they do occasionally check LinkedIn usually. So, does that make sense? Is that possible? You think you can hit 600?
I can try.
I think more important than 600, try to get calls. What matters is more calls. So if you can do like 10 calls before, maybe 10's a lot. If you can do 5 calls before next month.
Oh yeah, I already have a bunch of calls scheduled for the next few weeks.
You do? Great. How many?
I don't remember right now.
3?
But several, just because most of the people who I do send invites to who respond will get back to me and say like, oh, when are you available?
That's awesome. Yeah. So I would put that so they ask after your connection request, they ask when you're available. And then that's when you kind of come back to them with just as an open schedule, as open as you can have it.
Yeah, basically.
Great. Awesome. Yeah. And always try to be early for those calls, and kind of be ready to be asked questions of why are you interested in M&A, or why restructuring. And that's what makes it tough. If you start saying, oh, I want restructuring, you got to be ready to at least have a decent understanding of what it is.
Most of them are even, I feel like most of them underestimate my knowledge. And I usually know more than what they're saying. Like a lot of times they start explaining things that I already know.
Yeah.
Like they think I know less.
So I think that's good. And I think where you can impress is the types of questions you ask that show that knowledge.
Yeah.
In a way that's not obnoxious.
Right.
You don't want to be like, so tell me about the debtor. Is most of your things debtor or creditor work? But that's a good question if you understand the difference, and you're not doing it. What are the engagements like? Is it heavy modeling for the analysts there? That type of stuff. And you should be taking notes.
Oh yeah, I do. I have an Excel sheet with long notes from every call. So
Perfect. Yeah. Cause in that way you can follow up with like really targeted email.
yeah. And that's what I did too. A lot of over break was following up with people who I talked with over the summer.
Perfect.
And I was able to say, like, if they gave me this advice, oh, I followed this advice and this is what happened. And
yeah.
so.
It's awesome. People love that.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you're also showing like you're following through. You actually have
Sorry.
yeah.
Yes, I'm on a phone call right now. I'm sorry. I'm in a room.
It's okay. We'll be off soon. So yeah, I think, if you can keep doing all that, I feel like you're going to be in great shape. Not just this year and through the summer. This summer you can do a lot of damage because you don't have school. Just think of that.
Yeah. I just don't know how that'll work because I'll be in the office all day. So I guess but I'll also, I'm in the middle of Park Avenue too. So all the office buildings are right there.
Lunch with different people. You're going to need a big lunch budget or just a coffee budget.
Yeah.
You're going to have so much caffeine, or just get used to drinking tea or something that's less caffeinated, or water.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise you'll be shaking by your 5th coffee chat. Anything else in terms of like questions about like the follow-up and the timing? I think it is a little tricky. You don't want to be like really annoying and start hitting them every week.
Mm-hmm.
I think so we talked a little bit about the timing. So I think right when they connect with you on LinkedIn, if they haven't responded within a day or two, you can go ahead and send that email and start the reminder cycle. And I'd hit them again in 3 weeks if they haven't responded.
Mm-hmm.
If they still don't respond after that, I would give them another, don't give up. I would give it another 12 weeks. So 3 months. And then if they don't respond to that one, then I would let that contact go. Okay. So there's after they connect with you, it's hey, thanks for connecting with me. Here's my times. 3 weeks later, it's hey, still would love to chat. If I know you're super busy, do any of these times work? And you just go boom, 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 boom. And then literally 12 weeks later, hey, just one last email. I hope this isn't bothering you. But I know how busy you guys are. It'd still be great to chat with you if you have the time. Otherwise, no worries. I won't message you again.
Okay.
That type of thing. And then that way you're hitting them 3 times over a pretty long period of time. You're showing persistence, but doing it in a way that's actually conscious of their time. And the beauty is you're not in such a rush to get an internship that you don't need to be hitting them
right
like
mm-hmm.
this. You can do it a little bit more spaced out and still show that, hey, I have an internship. I'm not looking for a job. I almost wonder if there's a way you can maybe in the second email, if they haven't followed up with you, just because they may think, oh, this person's just going to be asking for an internship. You can say, I already have an internship secured. I'm really just curious to hear more about the position. I think a line like that is actually important in the second follow-up. If they're not like willing to chat with you, I think that could do a lot for your conversions.
Okay.
Because then it's a true mentorship, call. It's a true just helpful.
Okay. And then I did have one other question. So if I have like some people that I've talked with on the phone, mm-hmm. then either they offer to connect me with other people, or I ask and they say that they'll do that, or they'll find someone, they'll think about who they could connect me with. And then when I follow up after the phone call, I say something about that, but then they never get back to me. How do I politely follow up asking about that again? I know it's different in every circumstance.
So on Right Inbox, you can set default reminder timings. So like 1 week, 3 weeks, 7 weeks, 12 weeks, 14 weeks. You can do whatever you want to have it set so as a template so you can quickly drop it down. What I would do is after you send that email with the thank you for doing the call, blah, 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 I'm going to, if you do have anyone, blah, blah, blah. If they don't follow up, I wouldn't be like, in a week, hey, you never gave me anyone. What I would do is you do it in a way that's more subtle, where you just give them an update on where you are. So let's say, for example, you have a call with somebody next week. It's February. They say they're going to put you in touch with somebody. You have a great call. You say, thank you, They don't get in touch with you, but you have them on the reminder. They don't get back to you, but you have them on a reminder schedule for 12 weeks. You've made that connection. The most important thing is that you've made that connection. You now have a voice, they have a face to that, to your resume, to everything.
Mhm.
The most important thing is that you're getting on the phone with them once. Yes, it's good if it's actually critical that you always ask for that
Mhm.
warm intro to build. But the most important thing is that you've made that connection. So it's
Right.
not something where you need to be like annoying them, especially when you don't need anything right now. So what I would do is like in May, rather than be like, hey, do you have anybody else I can talk to? You just be like, hey, I just want to thank you again for the call we had back in February. Just letting you know, I'm starting my internship this week. I'm really excited. I'd love to just keep you up to date. Notice that your firm was doing this or something, something along of either a question or something helpful to them.
Yeah.
If you can add value at all to them, I think it would that would be great. That's a hard ask sometimes as a
Right.
as a freshman. But if there's anything you saw in the news that reminds you of a conversation you had with somebody in terms of a deal date, maybe they did or whatnot, it's a great opportunity to reach out. And that's where like your mental memory is almost going to be more valuable than at the spreadsheet. Like if you're reading something in the news, whether it's, PE Hub or one of these other news outlets, Deal Sheet, and where you're basically reading about different M&A transactions or restructuring, and you notice, oh, this person's bank or this person's group is working on this deal.
Mhm.
It's a great opportunity just to reach out, be like, hey, congrats. But yeah, I wouldn't feel the pressure to keep hounding them for another contact.
Okay.
I don't think it's worth it.
Right. Mhm.
I don't think it's worth it because you're already doing the legwork to get more contacts yourself anyways.
Mhm.
Sorry, excuse me. Ooh, cold. I'm getting over a cold.
Okay.
Too many kids bringing too many colds. But so does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. I think I lost you. Your volume, you there?
Mhm. The microphone.
I lost you. So yeah, I got you back. So does that make sense in terms of just like the follow-up? Again, you're going to be doing the legwork. You don't need to be bothering people more. I think it's
Mhm.
better if you're just reaching out to give them updates like every 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
um, in terms of where you are in your process, the internship, kind of what happened there. And I can help you at the end of your internship kind of craft an email to kind of give a lot of your updates, a lot of your
Okay.
contacts an update on what you did
Mhm.
over the
Okay.
summer. And I think that's smart going into the fall, especially if you're like, um, especially if you're actually have another internship lined up in the fall. It looks
Right.
even better.
Mhm.
And now I'm going to be starting this, and they're like, "Who is this girl?" Like, I remember talking to her; she seems sharp, and now she's stacking internships back to back during the school year. I think
Mhm.
it looks really good,
Mhm.
and she's only a sophomore, by next
Mhm. So for the people that I've talked with, I guess starting in around September through December,
year. Mm-hmm.
how long do I wait until I follow up with them again?
So you sent a thank you note, right?
Yes.
September through December. I mean, I think you can wait till.
Like wait till the middle or end of the summer,
I think you could.
or just the end of
It's a
the school
little late
year.
by the end of the summer,
Okay.
but 6 months isn't crazy. Like
Mhm.
maybe more like middle of the summer when you're in the middle of internship, saying you're loving it.
Mhm.
Been really interesting. You're working on a couple M&A transactions, sell side. Just wanted to give you an update and thank you again for all your advice that
Mhm.
late last year.
Okay.
Short and sweet, something like that is great just to keep you top of mind because they may be like,
Okay.
hey, we're looking actually to fill. That may actually
Mhm.
doing it kind of in the middle of the summer might be better because they may actually be looking to fill some spots
Right.
if it's a
Mhm.
smaller fund. And that may be a nice way to kind of, if you don't have something lined up for the fall yet,
Okay.
to do it. So maybe even like
Mhm.
late May, early June. I don't know when you
Okay.
start. When do you start your?
Because I've already been doing it this semester too.
Yeah, but
So
when do you start or when do you finish school and start full time there?
it'll probably be around Memorial Day.
So like late May. So maybe like
Mhm.
late June, just to give you
Okay.
a month there full time. I think you'll be able to say a little bit more in the email.
Right.
It'll be a little more believable
Yeah. True.
because it's really tough. It's really tough with the 15 hours a week
Mhm.
to be able to come across as like, oh, I'm really doing banking now.
Yeah.
um, so I think this is great though. I think you're in a really good shape. I think that so don't feel like you have to follow up with them every 3 months. It can be 6 months,
Okay.
especially now that you have. I mean, especially if you have nothing to say.
Mhm.
Like, what are you going to do? I mean, it's like, hey, I'm still working. I'm still at the same
Yeah.
internship. It's almost better
Right.
to do it when there's a bigger change or something, some momentum, or
Okay.
hey, this is in a few months. I know this recruiting is kicking off,
Mhm.
and I kind of want to get my name back at the top of the mind, top of the pile.
Mhm.
I know in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I'm going to be dropping my resume for the
Mhm.
program,
Okay.
and so timing that cycle is important, but I don't think anybody has to be like, it has to be a 3-month cycle for sure for everybody. And like you keep reaching out 4 times
Right.
a year, cause I think it's too rote. It's too robotic. It's not human
Mhm.
enough. And really the goal here is, it sounds robotic because I'm telling you to reach out to thousands of people,
Mhm.
but the real goal here is to develop a handful to 20 really strong relationships.
Right. Mhm.
That's going to move the needle a lot more than like having 100 really just informational meetings
Yeah.
and never
Mhm.
go any further. Like you want somebody to, after you start updating them, to kind of take an interest in you
Mhm.
and really kind of notice that you're following up, that you're following their advice, that you're speaking about the deals you're working on intelligently.
Mhm.
So you have something to say about it. And that's where I think the email is really important in terms of your update, like in late June,
Okay.
let's say. I think
Mhm.
just being able to craft that in such a way where they kind of like sit up and say, this is an intern,
Mhm.
you know,
Okay.
and it's a little bit of a balancing act because you don't want to come across as a tryhard.
Yeah.
And like, oh, I'm such a banker, like, like
Right.
you're so young and I know it all. So I think it's important to come across as humble and continue trying to
Right.
learn. If you do that, I think you're going to be in great shape.
Mhm. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I
Mhm.
would aim for just keep building that, doing those initial calls all through like
Right.
March, and then end of June, follow up with that whole group. And
Okay.
then you can kind of get them all on the same thing. It'll be insane.
Mhm.
To have this wave coming around every
Yeah.
like 5 to 6 months. But it'll be good because you can then figure out, okay, who really is taking an interest,
Mhm.
and see,
Right.
because there's always those people who just love giving back and love connecting with people who are hungry and who want it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and Fordham alumni in particular are always very helpful because it's a smaller group.
yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Mhm.
So I'm sure most of them will come from there, but you may be surprised.
Yeah.
You other places or non-target students, there's something kind of be like, oh, I'm going to take her under my wing and help her.
Yeah, there's been a few other people who I know really taken a liking to me
That's
who
great.
aren't Fordham. So.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
That's awesome. I think that's important. So, um, any other questions? Ask as many questions as you have.
I think that's all of them at this point.
Okay. Yeah. Cause I think you're on a great path. Um, Once you do have a transaction where you're a little more comfortable putting on your resume, let's talk about that. That's
Mhm.
super critical. Like the
Yeah.
earlier you can get that on your resume, the more looks you're going to get. Just 'cause it
Mhm.
looks like a banking resume now, and then
Yeah.
you can start removing some of the older stuff.
Yeah,
Uh,
I can send you what I did so far. I have like
okay,
3 bullet points, but they're really general just
that's
because
okay.
it hasn't been that long.
Yeah, and that's what
Just
it is. But yeah, in terms of like removing stuff, we don't want to just start getting into the mistake of trying to pack your resume and keep everything and hold on
Mhm.
to it because you feel like everything's so critical. You have a lot of like medicine and
Yeah, I took a few things out from the Hopkins part since that was the
perfect.
biggest
Since it
area.
was massive, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you should still always have that probably for a while because it's
Mhm.
good leadership and stuff like that. But I think the more you can fill up the top of your resume with relevant finance stuff,
Right.
the better
Mhm.
off you're going to be.
Yeah.
A lot of common
So,
sense.
yeah. I'll email that to you after we get
Cool.
off the call. Mhm.
Perfect. Yeah, so you're good then. Anything else? Just like, yeah, try not to burn yourself out.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, get 600 connections, but don't burn yourself out. If you have to drop something, drop this right now because
Okay.
you're in a good spot in terms
Mhm.
of if you didn't have an internship yet for the summer, I'd be pushing.
Mhm.
I would say I take priority over your schoolwork,
Mhm.
but I
Yeah.
don't anymore. Like you're in a
Mhm.
good seat. So now if something has to drop to keep your grades up and to do well at the internship, it should be this.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yes.
And it may flip again, like by midsummer, if you don't have any good leads and you're like, hey, what am I going to do in the fall? Then I'll be like, this takes priority
Yeah.
even over your internship. So
Mhm.
it may flip. And that little cadence of like, okay, what should I be focusing most of my time, most of my week on?
Mhm.
It's going to keep flipping depending on like the time of the year.
Yeah.
So
Right.
let's just keep that in mind.
Yes.
Anyways, is that helpful? I hope it is.
Yes, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. And then, just be confident. Don't be shy. Just don't be shy about who you're.
Oh yeah, I'm not anymore. I've
you're
done
gonna
so
get,
many phone calls at this point.
and you're going to get so good at it. You're going to get
Yeah.
so
Oh,
good at it.
mhm.
And your
I can
questions.
already tell my social skills are or like networking skills are better than most of my peers who are also like freshmen.
Yeah. And the other of course, because as a freshman, it's super intimidating. I couldn't even talk to anybody. But then the other thing about this is your questions are going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to learn through them telling about you stuff. Like, let's say you talk to one restructuring banker, or you talk to me a little bit about it, and then somebody else is going to tell you a little bit more detail. You're going to start piecing it together, and then your questions are going to get more nuanced and more targeted, specifically around there, and that's going to impress them even more. So
Right.
like, you take these calls as really an educational experience, and the beauty is you don't need an internship. It really is that. Like, there's no ulterior motive here. Yet, okay, there is an ulterior motive of building the connection potentially down the road. It could help you, but you're putting in the work so far ahead that it really is almost like the most pure networking that you can get. And networking kind of has a dirty connotation associated with it, because it's like, oh, this person's just. And I had a podcast, and the guy was like, I'm so sick of these kids just coming in with the same 5 questions. What's the culture like? Tell me what your favorite deal was. And like, they're not really engaged in what the person's saying. So it's like a huge waste of time rather than trying to connect with the person on a human level.
Right.
And show vulnerability, because now's the time to show vulnerability. You're young. It's like, oh, I'm still just trying to learn about like what even is restructuring. I don't know. Like,
they already have really low expectations.
They have super low expectations, and like, but share with them what you know and be excited. But also like show a little bit of vulnerability so they feel like they can help, and that feel good, and that makes them feel like a connection to you. When somebody helps another person, it's like crazy what happens. Like they feel like they have a vested interest, and so then all of a sudden they're much more likely to follow up to your emails. Oh, that's awesome, Grace. Keep me updated. Sounds like you're doing great. Oh, and by the way, our process is kicking off. I'd love to put you in there. And then boom, you're like,
okay.
So that's the goal. I think the better you get with your social skills, the better you get with your just conversations, and really, really try not to have like rote set questions. Really try to get good at listening to what the person is saying and riffing off of that. So when I say riffing off of that, it's almost like a dance.
Follow-up questions.
It's a dance. It's like somebody says, if they go in this specific direction where they're talking about that, you don't go back to your list and go, don't tell me about blah, blah, blah. And they're like, wait, does she like actually understand what I'm saying? Be like, actually, I don't really know what does that mean, or what does that stand for? And then they'll love that, because they're like, oh, she's not pretending or BSing. She's just trying to learn. So just be open. Like, you already know so much more than most freshmen, so you don't have to feel ashamed about not knowing something. You can be like, actually, I have no clue. And that'll be so refreshing. If you say that, like, could you shed some light on it? That would be really great. And then that's beautiful. That's beautiful, because you take a note on that. You follow up, be like, thank you so much for your explanation on this, this, and this. That was really insightful. And that's really how you build a stronger bond instead of just a transaction. You don't want it to feel like, okay, here's a 10-minute call. Okay, well, thank you so much. Bye. It's more like the way you end the conversation is actually really important in terms of, well, listen, I don't want to take so much of your time, Grace. I really appreciate this. I hope I can. It's okay if I follow up with you as I go through, as I work through my internship, and maybe this summer I can reach back out to you and kind of give you an update. Like, oh, of course, yeah, keep me updated. Let me know how things are going. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. Take care. But like, just that little thing where you're planting the seed of like, you're gonna let them know how you're doing.
Right. And a lot of them actually say that before I can. They'll say like, keep me updated. Let me know what else I can do.
Awesome. So that's great. That means you're making a good impression. So just keep doing what you're doing. Stay healthy. Drop, if you have to drop anything, drop this, but just try to keep at least some cadence. Don't let it drop to 0.
Right.
Try to keep building a little bit, so that, I think you have time on your side, and you're in a great seat. So keep it up.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for all the
help. Good choice of color today. Good choice of color.
Yes. Great minds think alike.
Yeah. All right. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye.
And thanks to you, my listeners at Wall Street Oasis. If you have any suggestions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to send them my way, patrick@wallstreetoasis.com. Until next time.